There's a story, another story of a guy I'd like to tell you, a guy named Ben. Our gospel community identified some people that we'd like to go after, and Stan and Kayla Ovanel knew a young man named Ben. And so I first met Ben at a Super Bowl party that almost didn't happen because no one was coming. We had invited people that didn't know about Jesus, and our purpose was to have a party where people could come, have food, watch a game, and we could get to talk to them. And no one was coming, and we almost canceled it. But halfway through the game, Stan and Kayla got a call from their friend named Ben, and he was coming over. So Ben came over, and we were able to talk with him, be able to begin to hear his story, and he was able to just hear us talk, and he understood that we got together a lot, we eat a lot, we celebrate a lot, we recreate a lot, and he really wanted to come and find out more. And so Ben began to join us, and we began to be able to hear Ben's story. And Ben has a dark story. The characters in his life have not been kind to him, and there was much darkness in his life. But thankfully, Ben's story didn't end in darkness. Ben's story ended with the light of the gospel. And the really cool thing is that on February 13th of this year, Ben got saved. And the really cool thing is that Ben now has joined our gospel community, and he is living on mission with us. He has joined us in our rhythms. He's celebrating with us. He's recreating with us. He's eating with us. He eats a lot. And he's serving with us, and now he has people that he's on mission for with his friends. And the really cool thing is that Ben's here today. And the really cool thing is that Ben's going to get baptized today. And the really cool thing is that he's here and he's going to share his story with us. So would you please invite with me to the stage Ben Peters.
I had Carrie and Jeff and Stan come up and stand with me because probably black out up here or something. This is my testimony. My name is Benjamin Peters. In the summer of 1991, my mother moved out from New Jersey to get a job working with the Forest Service. During that time, her boyfriend got her pregnant. He didn't know about it, but eventually she told him. 9 months later, on May 25th, 1991, I came into this world. My dad stuck around long enough to see me born, and a picture was taken that day. But he soon left, either that night or shortly after, and I haven't seen him since. My mother was a single, hard-working woman for several years. She eventually married another man, but like all the others, that ended. During this time, I was put into a daycare center that was managed by a guy with his girlfriend, and it was there, around the age of 3, that I, along with 2 other boys, were sexually molested by the owners. I don't really remember much about it, because I've tried to block it out. But the vague memories I do have were going to the police station and being questioned, bribery with a bulldozer, of course, about the daycare people. Later in my life, we moved cross-country to East Wenatchee. My mother married again, and my brother was born. But my mother's new husband was drunk and drug addict and bad news all around. And also, like the others, had shortly ended. Even though I don't remember much, these were significant events in my life that shaped how I would be and mark how I viewed myself. We then moved to Kashmir, and I entered kindergarten in the first grade. By then I was a little troublemaker, and I was shortly kicked out of the first grade, from what I remember, for climbing in the ceiling. My mother then met my stepdad. We moved to Leavenworth, where I attended the Shaston Dryden School from 2nd grade to 4th grade. With the confusion of not having a dad and having been sexually molested and the unstable situations surrounding my life, I had the same mentality everywhere I went. I was often angry with everybody in my life. I began having confusing emotions, outbursts of anger, followed by moments of remorse. Being so young, I didn't know what was wrong or why I was so angry. The only way I knew how to express feelings of hurt was through my anger. It was the 6th grade that another major turn hit my life. And this is the first event of abuse that I actually remember. Another guy in my class began to take advantage of me sexually, and again, all the confusion overwhelmed me. I didn't know who I was. My identity as a person was distorted. I didn't understand that this was wrong. I didn't want to tell anybody, and it was a secret that I would keep for many years, a secret that would haunt me and never leave. It would cling, control, and overtake me. It was a weapon used by the enemy to permanently mark me as one who was mentally gross. Throughout my childhood, I was sent to doctors and put on medications and had evaluations for mental and physical disorders. I was then sent to a facility for exams, and again, it wasn't long before I was kicked out for vandalism. Growing up, I had no idea whatsoever what sex was. I had no reference point for it, its intended purposes, or anything about it. After experiencing what had been done to me, I then turned around and did it to people that were close to me. I somehow knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what to think about sex. It had been done to me so many times that I thought it was fine to do to others. Thus began a cycle. Having the cyclone of abuse done against me and the confusion I was feeling towards those I had committed sins against made me respond with anger towards everything. I began throwing rocks, setting things on fire, becoming easily angered with adults and other children. I was arrested several times for assault and malicious mischief and arson. The final time I was arrested, my probation officer, who had been trying to give me a chance and had not turned in all of my violations of probation, finally was forced to turn everything in, and I was headed to juvie. I can't remember how long. One of the doctor's secretaries that I had been seeing had told my mom about a place called Patch, and she got an idea to put a petition forward to send me to Patch, Project Patch in Idaho. Soon after that, I was headed to Patch. Upon arriving at this corrections institute, first off, I thought I would be in my bed that very night, arrogant enough to believe that. The second week there, I threatened to kill a staff member. I was then sent to wilderness program at the facility for that. I tried to break a kid's skull with a rock while in the wilderness program. Everything that had been done to me made me angry and confused and hurt. And anyone who disrespected me at all, if I believed in any way, in any sense, that they had disrespected me, I would set out to make them pay and avenge myself for it. Because of more misdemeanors, I was then sent to Intermountain Lockdown Facility in Boise, Idaho. I was there and had constant monitoring, 3 blood tests a day, blood pressure tests at night, and hundreds of questions. I was there for 2.5 weeks. And then on the last day, I had an EKG, and the doctor finally put me on 2 different medications and a shot treatment of Depo-Provera. I was on Seroquel and Trileptal, medications that basically sedate parts of your brain, and was fed estrogen through the Depo-Provera shots so that my testosterone wouldn't fly out of control again. I was diagnosed with ADHD, ADD, ODD, bipolar, brachydactylia, and a massive testosterone level. Rules and consequences were given at Patch. They would push you on the areas you were weak in so that you would break them and then have to face the consequences. They would do things intentionally to tick you off so that you could learn to navigate through all those difficult situations. At one point, I was unconsciously getting tired of being in trouble and never being able to talk as one of the consequences, and eating not the greatest food. I started behaving better, confessing rules I had broken, respecting the staff and other students. Because of this, I was given more privileges and responsibilities. Things started to take a turn, at least for a while. I was there for 19 months. Finally, on January 27th, 2006, I graduated from Patch. Patch had given me invaluable structure that I needed and provided a boost and example to a right way of life. Patch had helped me put boundaries on my anger, and it didn't take away, but it didn't take away my desire to be angry. Patch took away my ability to look at porn, but it didn't take away my desire to look at porn. It set rules and regulations that were very helpful, but ultimately it hadn't freed me. Something else, someone else was needed, but I had no idea what that was. In other words, what Patch really did was give me a sense that there was a light on the other side of my darkness, but it couldn't free me from that darkness. It showed me that there was light at the end of the tunnel, but it didn't take me to that light. It was like being in a dark room for so many years, and a door had finally cracked and let in the slightest bit of light, let me know it was there, but I couldn't open it. Having graduated from Patch, I returned to Cascade High School in Leavenworth. Everyone literally thought I had died because I dropped off the face of the planet when I went to Patch. It was different. It felt good. I found freedom in football, as any guy probably should. It was something that I craved. There was a functional family there, something that I never had. There was a team, there was acceptance, there was a coach, John Bankson, a guy who quickly became a father figure to me. And there was hitting, lots of hitting. I was a lineman, loved it. It was a place I could take my anger out. Football was a massive shaping feature in my life. It was so shaping and life-giving that on my senior walk, a very important thing to me, I chose to have my coaches walk with me. But backtrack a little bit. My junior year, I got a concussion and blew out my knee, all in the space of about 4 weeks. But I didn't want to leave the family that I had there, so I became the manager. I would do their laundry, get the coach's keys, set up practices, make sure they had everything. Just do everything I possibly could to make up for not being able to play, not being able to contribute to the team, to the family that I had. I quickly found that I was fearing that they would leave me behind, so I became identified by the crazy things I did. I would do almost anything to get their attention. I was finding my identity in the way other people thought about me. But it was during this time that I began struggling with pornography again. Although it got worse than before, it was as far-reaching in depth and breadth as it possibly could be. I was so confused about the nature of sex because what had been done to me. It was a black canvas that covered up any notion of decency or rightness, and I was enslaved, and I wasn't coming back. School wasn't the most important thing on my list, and because of that, I graduated a year late. My final year at school, I took a job at the Enzian. My life was now characterized by work, home, and partying. There was a lot of pressure from my mother and stepdad to go to college, of which I didn't want to do. At this time, conflict intensified with my stepdad, to the point where I physically assaulted him and had a restraining order placed against me. This caused a major turnaround, where I then moved out and lived with a family who, in God's infinite wisdom, was a Christian, God-fearing family, Debbie and Paul Heron. I tried to forget and leave behind everything that I had done, but was continuously living in my sin. I hid it from myself and others. I found all the distractions that I could: drinking, partying, video games, pornography. I hardly ever looked in the mirror. I didn't want to see who I was. Every time I looked, every time I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror or reflective surface, I could see everything I did was plain on my face. It was right there in the mirror for me to see: my anger, my abuse, my sexual identity, my rage, my enslavement. I was trying to forget my past, but the enemy was reminding me of my past and wouldn't let me forget. The only way I thought I could remove my guilt, the only way I thought I could remove my shame and condemnation and the hurt that I had done towards others, the only way I thought justice could finally be rendered was if I were to kill myself. That was the only way that I could even think about forgiving myself. That was the only way I thought that others could forgive me. During that time in my life, I felt that killing someone else was less of an offense than what I had done because I robbed somebody of their dignity. I had thought that there was a cutoff point, that I had gone too far for God's love, that He could never accept me. I thought the world would be a better place if I wasn't in it. I was at the end. If this wasn't hell, I didn't know what was. But thanks to God, His story and my story don't end there.
Amen.
On Sunday, January 23rd, 2012, Super Bowl weekend of the Patriots and Giants game. Big disappointment. I was invited to a friend's house to a party. The plan was to get drunk. I didn't work the next day, so I thought it was a great idea to just get blacked out. But something or someone was pulling me away from that. I had also been invited to another party by Kayla Ovenel, and for some reason, something inside of me said, I don't want to get drunk anymore. I don't want to live a lie. I cannot go on like this anymore. Someone was pursuing me because for no reason, I decided to go to this Super Bowl party without the alcohol. And it was there, I met these crazy guys named Stan, Jeff, and Carrie. I was intimidated to talk to these guys. They seemed to have everything together. They had a life, they had direction, and they were married. And they had children that reminded me of the things I had done. While there, I heard that the guys were getting together the next day for something that was called DNA. For some reason, I really, really wanted to go. I wanted to tell somebody of my past. I was overwhelmed. I was loaded with guilt. I was at the end of all hope. I hadn't told anyone of my past, the things I had done, the sins I had committed, but I didn't know how I could possibly tell them of the darkest moments of my life. At the second DNA meeting, Stan started sharing some of his struggles and how he was experiencing victory over sin. And at that point, I could not hide anymore. I wanted to share so badly to get the burden off my back, but fear was keeping me. If I told them what I had done, who I was, how could they not hate me? How could they not loathe my life? But I got to the point it didn't matter. If they killed me for being such a wicked person, justice would be rendered, and what would it matter? I began sharing my life, but I didn't share my darkest secrets, only that I was enslaved to pornography and wanted to be set free. The first thing that Carrie said when I was done was that the Holy Spirit is bringing this out of you, Ben. Keep going. What else is there? I said I had no idea why I was here, no idea how I got here. They said they knew exactly why I was there, that because someone was pursuing me, and his name was Jesus. So I kept going. I told them everything, my anger, my addictions, and the one sin that I had not told anybody ever before, that I had been sexually molested and had molested others. I had thrown myself out there. I didn't know how they were going to respond. I was thinking, how are these guys not hating me right now? They have children of their own. Don't they realize what I've done? When I finished, there was silence. I hid my face under my hat in shame and waited for their response, thinking, still, how could they not hate me? After telling the darkest secrets of my soul, I looked at them and said, I want to know what I have to do to get right with God. It was that day, February 13th, 2012, that I finally understood what the good news was. Amen. The good news was that I could never, ever get even close or do anything at all possible to get right with God. But he had done something to get right with me. Amen. They told me of something that I didn't think was possible in the least. That my sins could actually be placed on somebody else, and even furthermore, be forgiven. Amen. Forgiven. That was a word I never rolled around in my mouth. Never thought possible. Whenever something came along like that, Satan would come and take it and say, you're not good enough. There's no way you can possibly be good enough. I had heard that God could take away sin, but it was always something that I thought was less. Something, well, I stole when I was a kid. Yeah? Well, take a look at the things I've done, and you tell me that God could possibly forgive this. I would now like to share with you what I shared, or what you shared with me on that day about what Jesus has done for me. Jesus died as my substitute. The anger that was against me for my sins was taken upon him. God's wrath was fully and completely poured out on his Son for my sake. And because of this, he has granted me pardon. I had so much guilt, and the enemy used that guilt as a weapon to condemn me. But I can tell you today that because of Jesus, there stands no condemning power in my life. Jesus drank my cup of shame that was in me. God has taken what I had done and placed it upon his Son. Jesus lifted that weight of sin, gave me his righteousness in its place. Jesus died as my ransom. My enslavement to pornography was stronger than I could possibly bear. It was a weight that crushed me my entire life. But it was not stronger than the blood of Christ. The cross has broken its power, and I can truly say to you this day that I've been freed from its control. My desires have changed. My heart wants other things now, particularly more of Jesus. I was looking for a high, and I found it. His name is Jesus. He's my supplier. Jesus died as my Redeemer, and the sin that was done to me, the shame that I felt, was placed upon him. He has taken my shame. He was humiliated and bloodied on my behalf. He was crucified naked in front of everybody so that my shame might be taken and placed upon him. I stand in front of you clean and able to share my sins without guilt, because that guilt was placed upon Jesus and pinned to the cross.
Amen.
I am free. No guilt, no shame, no condemnation, because I am in Christ. I have a new identity.
Amen.
When we were done, everything that I had pushed back, everything I had hidden, the burden that had weighed me down for so many years was gone. I am no longer identified by the sins that I have done, that have been done to me, anything. I don't have to carry that life with me. The things I've done have been covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. When God looks at me, he sees Christ's work. He sees Christ's performance. He sees his Son's perfection. Justice was done on a cross 2,000 years ago.
Amen.
God has been just with my sin. He has placed it on his Son, his beautiful Son, to ransom me by the blood of Christ. Now I am free, my burdens gone, my shame taken, condemnation removed. I've been forgiven, I've been accepted, I've been given a new life, a new family, and Jesus reigns forever. Thank you.